Orbital Station Gamma 7 floated in the empty darkness of space like a metal city among the stars. Thousands of beings lived and worked there. Humans and many other species walked its long corridors every day. They shared the same air, the same water, and the same food halls. Most of the time, everyone got along well enough. But sometimes, small problems became big problems. And sometimes, those problems started with something as simple as lunch. His species looked like tall lizards with 4 arms and scales that changed color based on their mood. Right now, his scales were a happy shade of yellow. He had just finished a long shift in the cargo bay, moving heavy boxes for 12 hours straight. His stomach made loud, angry noises. He needed food, and he needed it now. The communal kitchen on level 12 was mostly empty at this hour. Most workers were still at their jobs, liked it this way. Fewer beings meant more food for him. He walked past the cooking stations and headed straight for the large refrigerator units against the back wall. Each unit had sections marked with names and species. Ignored all the labels. Rules were for other beings, not for him. He opened the first unit and looked inside. There were several containers. Some had alien symbols he did not understand. Others had human writing. One container caught his attention immediately. It was a large metal pot with a sealed lid. Something inside smelled amazing. Leaned closer and took a deep breath. The smell hit him like a wave of pure joy. Whatever was inside that pot, he wanted it. He wanted it badly. Looked around the kitchen. Nobody was watching. The security cameras pointed at the main entrance, not at the refrigerators. He had stolen food before and never got caught. This would be easy. He grabbed the pot with 2 of his 4 hands and carried it to a corner table. His scales turned a deeper yellow, almost orange, with excitement. He removed the lid and stared at the contents. It was some kind of thick red stew with chunks of white food floating in it. Steam rose from the surface even though the pot had been in the cold unit. The smell was even stronger now. Spicy, sour, and rich all at once. Did not know what this food was called. He did not care. He grabbed a serving spoon from a nearby rack and started eating. The first bite made his eyes go wide. The taste exploded in his mouth. It was hot, incredibly hot, and burned his tongue. But it was also delicious beyond anything he had ever eaten before. He could not stop. He ate and ate and ate. The stew disappeared spoonful by spoonful. The spice made his nose run and his eyes water, but he did not slow down. His species was known for eating almost anything and was proud of his strong stomach. This human food was no match for him. Within 10 minutes, the pot was empty. Licked the spoon clean and leaned back in his chair. His stomach was full and happy. His scales had turned a satisfied shade of green. He felt like the luckiest being on the entire station. He did not know that this pot belonged to Park. Was a human engineer who worked in the station's power core. She was small, quiet, and kept to herself most of the time. Other humans on the station knew her name but rarely talked to her. She showed up to work, did her job perfectly, and went home. She never caused problems. She never complained. She was invisible in the best possible way. But the few beings who truly knew understood something important. They understood that her quiet nature was not weakness. It was control. Had grown up in a hard place on Earth. She had learned early that anger was a tool, not a feeling. She had learned to wait, to plan, and to act only when the time was right. These lessons had kept her alive through many difficult years. The stew that had just eaten was grandmother's recipe. Her grandmother had passed away 3 years ago, and this recipe was all had left of her. Every week, spent hours preparing this stew. She bought the ingredients from special human traders who visited the station. She cooked it slowly, the way her grandmother had taught her. She stored it in that same metal pot her grandmother had used back on Earth. This stew was not just food, too. It was memory. It was love. It was the only connection she still had to her family and her home planet. Knew none of this. He simply stood up, threw the empty pot into a cleaning unit, and walked out of the kitchen. His scales were still green. His stomach was still full. He felt very pleased with himself. He bragged about his stolen meal to two others in the corridor. They laughed with him. Humans were weak and stupid, they agreed. Their food was good, but humans themselves were nothing to worry about. They were small, fragile creatures with soft skin and no claws. What could a human possibly do to a? Did not see the small human woman who passed by them at that moment. He did not notice her freeze mid-step when she heard his words. He did not see her dark eyes narrow as she looked at him. He did not feel the sudden cold that seemed to fill the corridor. Had been walking back to level 12 after her shift. She was tired and hungry. She had been thinking about her grandmother's stew all day. The taste, the smell, the warmth. It was the one good thing waiting for her at the end of another long day. And now she heard this alien laughing about stealing it. She stood very still for a long moment. Her hands hung at her sides. Her face showed no expression at all. Inside her chest, something dark and old woke up. It stretched and opened its eyes. It remembered all the years of training, all the fights, all the pain. It remembered what she was capable of when someone took something precious from her. And his friends walked away, still laughing. They did not look back. They did not see watching them go. They did not see her lips move as she whispered a single word in Korean, a word her grandmother had taught her. It meant patience. Turned and walked toward the level 12 kitchen. Her steps were slow and calm. She already knew what she would find. An empty refrigerator. A missing pot. Her grandmother's recipe, gone forever. But she needed to see it with her own eyes. She needed to feel the full weight of what had been taken from her. Only then would she know exactly what to do next. The station continued its normal operations around her. Beings walked past, going about their day. None of them paid attention to the small human woman with the empty eyes. None of them felt the storm that was building inside her. Had made a terrible mistake, and very soon he was going to learn just how terrible that mistake truly was. Walked into the level 12 kitchen with slow, measured steps. Her work boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. The kitchen was still mostly empty. A worker was heating something at a cooking station in the far corner. He did not look up when she entered. He was focused on his own meal, his own life, his own small world. Walked straight to the refrigerator unit. She already knew what she would find, but her body moved anyway. It was like watching herself from outside. Her hand reached out. Her fingers touched the cold metal handle. She pulled the door open. Her section was empty. The pot was gone. Her grandmother's pot. The one with the small dent on the side from when had dropped it as a child. The one her grandmother had carried from Korea to the space colonies. The one that had traveled across the stars to reach this station. Gone. Stared at the empty space for a long time. Her face did not change. Her body did not move. But inside her mind, something shifted. It was like a door opening in a dark room. Behind that door were memories she usually kept locked away. She remembered her grandmother's hands teaching her how to chop vegetables. She remembered the smell of kimchi fermenting in clay pots. She remembered sitting at a small kitchen table while her grandmother told stories about the old country. She remembered the last time she saw her grandmother alive, lying in a hospital bed, too weak to speak but still smiling. And now some alien had taken all of that away. For what? A meal, just a simple meal. Closed the refrigerator door very gently. She turned around and looked at the cleaning unit against the wall. Something metal was visible through the glass window. She walked over and opened the unit. Her grandmother's pot sat inside, washed clean, empty. Just a piece of metal now, nothing special about it anymore. The food was gone. The memories were gone. Everything her grandmother had put into that recipe, everything had tried so hard to preserve, was now inside the stomach of some laughing alien. Picked up the pot and held it in both hands. It was still warm from the cleaning cycle. She stood there in the middle of the kitchen, holding the pot, staring at nothing. The worker finally noticed her. He looked over with mild curiosity. "Are you okay, human?" he asked in the common language of the station. Did not answer, she did not even look at him. After a moment she put the pot under her arm and walked out of the kitchen. Her footsteps were exactly the same as before. Slow, calm, controlled. The watched her go. Something about her made his scales feel cold. He was a large being, 3 times her size, with claws that could cut through steel. But something in that small human's eyes made him deeply uncomfortable. He quickly finished his meal and left the kitchen through a different exit. Walked back to her small living quarters on level 8. She entered her room and placed the pot on her bed. Then she sat down in a chair by her desk and did not move for almost an hour. Her eyes were open, but she was not looking at anything in the room. She was looking inside herself. She was making a decision. Hurd tried to call her on the communication system. His voice came through the speaker on her desk. "Are you there? Some of us are going to the recreation hall tonight. Do you want to come?" Reached out and switched off the speaker without answering. Was a good person. He had been kind to her since she arrived on the station 2 years ago. He always invited her to social events even though she always said no. He brought her coffee sometimes when she was working late. He never asked about her past or pushed her to talk. He simply accepted her as she was. She did not want to involve him in what was coming. Stood up and walked to her small storage closet. She opened it and looked at the items inside. Most of it was normal. Clothes, tools, spare parts for her work. But in the back, hidden behind a stack of maintenance manuals, was a black bag she had not opened in a very long time. She reached in and pulled it out. The bag was heavy. She placed it on her bed next to her grandmother's pot and unzipped it slowly. Inside were things from her old life. Things she had promised herself she would never use again. A set of thin metal tools that could open any lock on the station. A small device that could disable security cameras for exactly 30 seconds. A knife with a blade so sharp it could cut through scales like paper. Had been many things before she became an engineer. Not all of those things were legal. Not all of them were nice. But she had been very, very good at them. She picked up the knife and tested its weight in her hand. It still felt natural. It still felt like an extension of her arm. Some skills never went away, no matter how hard you tried to forget them. She sat back down in her chair and began to think. The alien who stole her food was she had seen him in the corridor, heard him bragging. She remembered his face, his voice, the yellow-green color of his scales. She did not know his name yet, but that would be easy to find out. Were loud and proud. They liked to talk about themselves. A few questions in the right places would tell her everything she needed to know. What would she do when she found him? Was not sure yet. The dark thing inside her wanted blood. It wanted to hurt him the way he had hurt her. It wanted to make him understand what he had taken. But was not a monster. She was not a killer. At least she had not been one for many years. She had come to this station to start a new life. She had worked hard to build something clean and honest. Did she really want to throw all of that away? She looked at her grandmother's pot sitting on the bed. She thought about her grandmother's face. What would her grandmother want her to do? Her grandmother had been a gentle woman. She believed in forgiveness. She believed in moving forward. She always told that anger was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. But her grandmother had also been a survivor. She had lived through wars and hunger and loss. She had done things she never talked about to keep her family alive. She understood that sometimes the world forced you to fight back. Closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, her decision was made. She would she would make him understand what he had done, and then she would see what happened. Maybe she would simply scare him. Maybe she would make him apologize. Maybe she would do something much worse. It depended on him. It depended on whether he showed any regret. It depended on whether he understood that he had not just stolen food. He had stolen memory. He had stolen love. He had stolen the last piece of a woman who had meant everything to. She stood up and began to prepare. She changed into dark clothes that were easy to move in. She strapped the knife to her leg where it would be hidden. She put the lock tools in her pocket. She slipped the camera into her sleeve. Before she left, she looked at herself in the small mirror by her door. A stranger looked back at her. A stranger with cold eyes and a calm face. A stranger she had not seen in many years. "I'm sorry, grandmother," she whispered to the empty room, "but some things cannot be forgiven." Then she opened the door and stepped out into the corridor. The hunt was about to begin. Finding information on Orbital Station Gamma 7 was easy if you knew where to look. She had spent 2 years on this station, watching, listening, learning. She knew which corridors the security cameras did not cover. She knew which workers gossiped the most. She knew which bars served after their shifts ended. She started at a small drinking place on level 15 called the Rusty Valve. It was a dirty, dark room where cargo workers came to spend their credits on cheap alcohol. The owner was a fat human named who owed a favor. She had fixed his life support system for free when the station mechanics wanted to charge him too much. He remembered. "A with yellow-green scales," said quietly, sitting at the corner of his bar. "Brags a lot, works in the cargo bay, ate my lunch today and laughed about it." Scratched his chin. "That sounds like mean little lizard, always causing trouble, never pays his tab on time." Repeated the name softly. It felt strange in her mouth, like something that did not belong there. "He works the day shift in Cargo Bay 7, continued. "Lives on level 19 with some other. Room 1947, I think. But you did not hear that from me." Nodded and placed some credits on the bar. "Thank you." Pushed the credits back toward her. "Keep it. Anyone who goes after is doing this station a service. Just be careful, okay? Are tough. They have those 4 arms and claws." Looked at him with eyes that showed nothing. "I know." She left the Rusty Valve and began making her way to level 19. The station's corridors were busy at this hour. Shift change had just happened and thousands of workers were moving between their jobs and their homes, moved through the crowd like a ghost. She was small and plain. Nobody looked at her twice. That was exactly how she liked it. On level 16, she ran into. He was standing outside a food shop holding 2 cups of coffee. His face lit up when he saw her. "There you are. I tried calling you earlier. I was worried." Stopped walking. She had not expected to see him here. She did not want him involved. "I'm fine," she said. Her voice was flat. "I have something to do." Frowned. He had known for 2 years. He had never seen her look like this before. Her eyes were different. Harder, colder, like looking at a stranger. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Did something happen?" "Someone stole my grandmother's stew." Blinked. "Your stew? That's terrible, but it's just food, right? I mean, you can make more." "No," cut him off. Her voice was sharp like a knife. "I cannot make more. My grandmother is dead. That recipe died with her. The pot she gave me is empty now. Some ate everything and threw away the pot like garbage." Was silent for a moment. He knew about's grandmother. She had mentioned her a few times over the years. He understood that the stew was important, but he did not fully understand how important. How could he? He had never lost someone the way he had. He had never felt that kind of emptiness. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "That's really terrible. Have you reported it to station security? They could find whoever did it and—" "Security won't help," said. "They don't care about stolen food. They will tell me to file a report and forget about it. Nothing will happen. Nothing ever happens when humans complain about aliens." This was true and knew it. The station was supposed to treat all species equally, but in practice, humans were often treated as second-class citizens. They were physically weaker than most other species. They had only been in space for a few hundred years while other races had been traveling the stars for. Many aliens looked down on humans as primitive newcomers. "Then what are you going to do?" asked. There was worry in his voice. Looked at him for a long moment. She could see the concern in his eyes. He was a good man, soft, kind, gentle. He had never hurt anyone in his life. He did not understand the darkness that lived inside people like her. "I'm going to find him," said simply. "I'm going to have a conversation with him." "Please, I know you're upset, but this isn't worth getting in trouble over. Are dangerous. They could hurt you." Almost smiled. "Almost. I appreciate your concern, but you don't need to worry about me." She started walking again, grabbed her arm. It was a gentle touch, not aggressive at all, just a friend trying to stop another friend from making a mistake. Froze, her muscles tensed. For a single heartbeat, something very dangerous flickered in her eyes. Old reflexes, old instincts, screaming at her to strike first and ask questions later. She forced herself to relax. He was not a threat, he was not an enemy. "Please let go of my arm," she said quietly. Released her immediately. His face was pale. He had seen something in her eyes that scared him, something he had never noticed before. What was that?" "Nothing," she said. "Go home, drink your coffee, watch a show, forget about this. I will be fine." She walked away before he could respond. Her heart was beating fast. She had not meant to scare him. She had not wanted him to see that part of her. But it was too late now. The mask had slipped just for a moment. She pushed the thought away and focused on her target. Level 19, room 1947. The corridors became quieter as she moved higher into the station. Level 19 was near the outer hull, where the cheap housing was located. The walls were older here. The lights flickered sometimes. The air smelled like recycled metal and unwashed bodies. Found room 1947 easily. It was at the end of a long hallway with poor lighting, perfect for someone who did not want to be seen. She pressed her ear against the door and listened. She could hear voices inside, multiple voices. Was home and he had friends with him. 3 voices, maybe 4. Too many to confront directly, even for someone with her skills. She needed to wait. She needed to be patient. She needed to find alone. Stepped back and found a dark corner where she could watch the door without being seen. She settled into a comfortable position and prepared to wait as long as necessary. Hours passed. The station's artificial lights dimmed to simulate night. Most beings went asleep. The corridor became silent. Finally, at what would be 3 in the morning on Earth time, the door to room 1947 opened. A single walked out. His scales were the yellow-green color she remembered. His face was the face she had memorized. It was. He was alone. He was walking toward the communal bathrooms at the other end of the hallway. He was half asleep, not paying attention to his surroundings. Smiled in the darkness. It was not a nice smile. She rose from her hiding spot and began to follow. The hunt was over. Now came the real work. Walked through the dim corridor with heavy feet. He was tired and still a little drunk from the alcohol he had shared with his friends earlier. His stomach felt good, full and satisfied. He had eaten well today, first that amazing human stew and then a large dinner with his roommates. Life on the station was not bad, he thought. Easy work, cheap housing, and plenty of weak species to push around. He reached the communal bathroom and pushed open the door. The room was empty at this hour. Good. He did not like sharing space with other beings when he was tired. He walked to the far end of the room where the size toilets were located. His species had different needs than most others. The station had built special facilities for each type of being. It was one of the few things the station managers had done right. Did not hear the door open behind him. He did not hear the soft footsteps crossing the tile floor. He did not feel the presence moving closer and closer. He only realized he was not alone when something cold and sharp pressed against the back of his neck. "Don't move," a quiet voice said, a human voice, female. Scales turned pale blue with surprise and fear. He tried to turn around, but the sharp thing at his neck pressed harder. He felt his scales crack slightly under the pressure. "I said don't move." The voice was calm, patient, like someone who had done this many times before. "What do you want?" His voice came out higher than he intended. "I don't have any credits on me. If you want money, you picked the wrong target." "I don't want your money." The human walked around him slowly, keeping the blade at his throat. Finally saw her face. A small woman, plain features, dark hair pulled back tight, nothing special about her appearance at all. But her eyes were wrong. They were empty, dead, like looking into the void of space itself. Recognized her. He had seen this human before, in the corridor outside the level 12 kitchen. He had walked right past her while bragging about the stolen food. His scales turned even paler as understanding hit him. "The stew," he whispered. "This is about the stew." "Yes," the woman did not blink. "This is about the stew." Fear began to mix with anger. A human was threatening him over food. This was ridiculous. He had 4 arms and claws. He was twice her size. She was just a soft, weak human female. "You must be joking," he said, trying to sound confident. "All this for some food. I'll buy you 100 meals. I'll buy you 1,000. Just put that knife away and we can forget this happened." The woman tilted her head slightly. "You don't understand. That food was not just food. It was my grandmother's recipe. The only recipe I had from her. She is dead now. She died 3 years ago. That stew was all I had left of her, and you ate it. You ate everything. Then you threw away her pot like garbage." Heard the words, but he did not truly understand them. Why would anyone care so much about food? Food was just fuel. You ate it and forgot about it. There was always more food. "I'm sorry," he said, not meaning it at all. "I didn't know it was special. Now let me go and I won't report you to security." The woman laughed. It was a small, quiet sound, a sound with no warmth in it at all. "You won't report me to security," she said, "because security will never know this happened, and even if they find out, they won't care. Humans don't matter on this station. You taught me that when you stole from me and laughed about it." Felt real fear now. This human was not acting like humans were supposed to act. She was supposed to be scared. She was supposed to be weak. She was supposed to cry or beg or run away. Instead, she was calm. Too calm, like a predator playing with its food. He decided to fight. He was bigger and stronger. He had 4 arms, she only had 2. He could take her. He moved fast, all 4 arms reaching for her at once. His claws extended, his mouth open to bite. But she was faster. The knife disappeared from his throat. He thought he had won for half a second. Then pain exploded in his left side. He looked down and saw the knife buried deep between his scales, exactly in the soft spot where his armor was weakest. The woman pulled the knife out and stepped back. Her movements were smooth and practiced, professional. Stumbled backward, one arm pressing against the wound. Green blood leaked between his fingers. The pain was incredible. He had never been hurt like this before. What are you?" he gasped. "I'm someone who lost everything once," the woman said quietly. "Someone who learned to survive. Someone who promised herself she would never let anyone take from her again. And you broke that promise." Tried to run. He made it 3 steps before his legs gave out. He collapsed against the bathroom wall, sliding down to the floor. The wound was bad. He could feel his strength leaving his body along with his blood. The woman walked toward him slowly. There was no rush in her movements, no urgency. She had all the time in the world. "I gave you a chance," she said, looking down at him. "I waited for you to show regret, to show that you understood what you did. But you don't understand. You can't understand. To you, I'm just a weak human. My food was just something to steal. My grandmother's memory was just garbage to throw away." Tried to speak, but only a wet gurgling sound came out. His vision was getting dark around the edges. The woman knelt beside him. Her face was very close to his now. He could see every detail of her features. The small scar above her eyebrow, the dark circles under her eyes, the complete absence of mercy in her gaze. "In my grandmother's language," she whispered, "there is a word for people like me. It means one who waits. We wait and watch and remember, and when the time is right, we act. You should have learned more about humans before you decided to steal from one." She stood up and looked at him for a long moment. Then she raised her knife. What happened next was quick, efficient, professional. When it was over, the woman cleaned her knife on's clothes. She washed her hands in the sink. She checked her reflection in the mirror. There was no blood on her face or her clothes. No evidence at all. She walked to the bathroom door and paused. She looked back at what remained on the floor. Her face showed no emotion, no satisfaction, no regret, nothing at all. "Thank you," she said to the empty room. "Now I can finally let her go." Then she opened the door and walked away into the dark corridor. Behind her, the automatic lights in the bathroom flickered once and went out. The body was discovered at 600 hours station time. A maintenance worker went to clean the level 19 bathrooms and found what was left of spread across the floor and walls. The screaming could be heard 3 corridors away. Security chief arrived at the scene 20 minutes later. He was a tall human man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had worked on orbital station Gamma 7 for 15 years. He had seen many things in those years. Deaths from accidents, deaths from fights, deaths from the cold vacuum of space when airlocks failed. But he had never seen anything quite like this. Had not simply been killed. He had been taken apart, piece by piece, with surgical precision. His 4 arms were arranged in a neat row against the far wall. His scales had been removed and stacked in a small pile. His internal organs were missing entirely. The forensic team worked for 6 hours trying to understand what had happened. They found no useful evidence, no fingerprints, no DNA from anyone except the victim, no weapon left behind. Whoever had done this knew exactly what they were doing and how to avoid being caught. Stood outside the bathroom and watched his team work. His stomach felt sick, but his face remained professional. He had a job to do. "Any witnesses?" he asked his assistant, a young human woman named Ah. Ah shook her head. Nobody heard anything. Nobody saw anything. The cameras in this section were offline for exactly 30 minutes last night. Technical malfunction, supposedly. "Supposedly," repeated. He did not believe in coincidences. "We questioned roommates," Ah continued. "They said he left their room around 300 to use the bathroom. They fell asleep after that. When they woke up, he wasn't there, but they didn't think anything of it. They assumed he went to work early." "Did have any enemies?" Ah laughed bitterly. He had many enemies. He was known for stealing, bullying, and causing problems, but most of his conflicts were with nobody we interviewed seemed capable of doing this. Rubbed his forehead. This case was going to be a nightmare. A murdered alien, no evidence, no suspects, and somewhere on this station, someone who could take apart it with 4 arms like it was nothing. He spent the next 2 days investigating. He questioned cargo bay workers. He checked security footage from every nearby camera. He reviewed personal history looking for clues. He found nothing useful. The community on the station demanded justice. They held protests outside the security office. They accused humans of being murderers. They threatened to leave the station and take their workers with them. Listened to their complaints and promised to find the killer. But privately, he knew the truth. This case would probably never be solved. Whoever had killed was too careful, too skilled, and too invisible to be caught through normal investigation. On the 3rd day after the murder, was sitting in his office reviewing reports when someone knocked on his door. He looked up and saw a small human woman standing in the doorway. "Can I help you?" he asked. "My name is Park," the woman said. "I work in the power core. I heard about the who was killed and I wanted to offer my condolences." Frowned. This was unusual. Most station workers avoided security unless they had to be there. "Did you know the victim?" "Not personally, but I had a small conflict with him the day before he died. I wanted to make sure you knew about it, in case it's relevant to your investigation. Sat up finally a possible lead. What kind of conflict? His face was calm and open, nothing suspicious about her at all. He stole my lunch from the level 12 kitchen, my grandmother's special recipe. I was upset about it, but I didn't do anything. It was just food after all, not worth causing trouble over. She paused and looked directly into his eyes. Her gaze was steady and clear. I just wanted to be honest with you. I know how investigations work. Someone might mention that I was angry about the theft. I didn't want you to waste time considering me a suspect. Studied her carefully. She was small, maybe 50 kilograms at most. Her hands were the hands of an engineer, calloused from work but not threatening. Her body language was relaxed and cooperative. He could not imagine this woman overpowering a twice her size. He could not picture her doing the things that had been done too. It was simply impossible. "Thank you for coming forward," he said finally. "We'll make a note of it. Is there anything else you can tell us?" Shook her head. "I'm afraid not. I went home after my shift that day and didn't go out again until morning. I live alone, so I don't have anyone who can confirm that, but it's the truth." Nodded. No alibi, but also no evidence connecting her to the crime. She was just another station worker with a minor complaint against the victim. There were probably dozens of people like her. "We appreciate your cooperation," he said. "If you think of anything else, please contact us." Smiled politely. "Of course, I hope you find whoever did this. It must be terrible for the victim's family." She turned and walked out of the office. Her footsteps were light and even, nothing remarkable about her at all. Watched her go. Something tickled the back of his mind. Some instinct that told him to look closer, dig deeper, ask more questions. But he pushed it away. He had real suspects to investigate, known criminals, beings with actual capability and motive. Not quiet human engineers who cared about their grandmother's recipes. The case remained unsolved. After 3 weeks, filed it as cause of death, undetermined, suspect, unknown. The community eventually calmed down. Life on the station returned to normal, was forgotten by almost everyone. Continued her work in the power core. She showed up on time, did her job perfectly, and went home. She was quiet and polite. She never caused problems. She was invisible in the best possible way. Tried to talk to her about that night several times. He wanted to know what had really happened. He wanted to understand what he had seen in her eyes, but always changed the subject. Eventually, he stopped asking. Some questions were better left unanswered. On the 1-month anniversary of his death, went to the level 12 kitchen after her shift. She opened the refrigerator and placed a familiar metal pot inside. It was full of fresh stew. Her grandmother's recipe, remade from memory. She had finally found all the ingredients again. A human trader had visited the station the week before. She had bought everything she needed. She had spent hours cooking, just like her grandmother taught her. The stew smelled exactly right, spicy, sour, and rich. Closed the refrigerator door and placed a small label on the front. It read, "Property of Park, please do not touch." She stood there for a moment looking at the label. Then she smiled. It was a small, private smile, a smile that remembered both love and violence, a smile that held both grief and satisfaction. Nobody ever touched her lunch again. The other workers on the station began to treat her differently after that. They didn't know why exactly. They just had a feeling, a sense that the small, quiet human woman in the power core was someone to respect, someone not to cross, someone who carried something dangerous inside her, hidden behind those calm, dark eyes. The station continued to orbit through space. Thousands of beings lived and worked and died within its metal walls, and among them walked a human woman who had taught everyone an important lesson. Some things were not just food. Some things were worth fighting for, and some humans were not as weak as they appeared. went home that night, and slept peacefully for the first time in months. In her dreams, her grandmother smiled at her,